Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome back to the next session of Social Science children. We've been seeing about Delhi Sultanate in our previous sessions, right? So in our last session we've seen about the three major projects which was introduced by Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So which turned out to be a failure again. So now we have also seen that after Muhammad bin Tughlaq's death, the rule was taken over by Firoz Shah, who was his cousin, right? So he was not as efficient as Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and that is where the Tughlaq dynasty began to fall, right? So now we will see in detail how it started to fall. So we are just going to cover Sayyid dynasty and Lodi dynasty, then the expansion of Delhi, expansion under Delhi Sultans, the administration of Delhi Sultans, and the causes for the downfall of Delhi Sultanate on the whole. Okay, so we will see one by one in detail now. First we will see about Timur. Okay, so he was the king, he was a Mongol king. Okay, so he from Samarkand and Central Asia, he was the descendant of Genghis Khan. Descendant is nothing but a person from his family. So Genghis Khan was his ancestor. Okay, so descendant means a person from same family. So this is Timur, and he was the descendant of Genghis Khan, and he was the main reason for the final blow to the Tughlaq. So he was the main reason for the Tughlaq dynasty that had started falling down. Okay, so he attacked. Okay, so he was very much attracted towards the riches of India. So he was very much impressed with all the resources available in India. So what he happened, he took his army and marched towards Delhi. Okay, in 1397 to 1398 CE, and then happened the battle. Okay, so after that battle he took over the control of Delhi. So that is how Tughlaq dynasty came to an end completely. Okay, so he won the battle and finally Tughlaq dynasty came to an end. So what he did, he appointed one of his officers, Sayyid Khizr Khan. Okay, Sayyid Khizr Khan as the ruler here. Okay, so he was the important officer in Timur's kingdom. So he appointed him to take care of Indian territories. So what happened after that? This Khizr Khan, okay, he proclaimed himself as Sultan of Delhi. So he himself declared him as Sultan of Delhi. So after that, okay, so here you can see the army of Timur. That was a very huge army. Okay, so who fought for the Delhi? And so after this Khizr Khan took over the kingdom, he ruled from 1414 to 1451 CE, and that period is called as Sayyid dynasty. So he established this Sayyid dynasty, and that was easily taken over by the Lodi dynasty. Okay, so these people, these Sayyid dynasty rulers were not much efficient, and because of that easily it was taken over by Lodi dynasty. So now what happened? The Sultanate had shrunk to a very small area, and now it is just around Delhi. So by the end of Tughlaq dynasty, we have seen that the kingdom, that is the Sultanate, has shrunk up to only Punjab and Delhi. Now what happened after this Sayyid dynasty, when Lodi dynasty was about to start, the Sultanate had become too small that it was confined only to Delhi. Okay, so here you can see in the various periods. Okay, so this was in Mamluk dynasty, the rule, this was the places ruled by these Mamluk kings. Then what happened in Khilji dynasty, it expanded like this, and when it was in Tughlaq dynasty, It was almost throughout the country, and finally during the Sayyid and Lodi dynasty, it was just a very small part. So that is how these sultanates started losing their control over our country, right? So when Lodi dynasty started, so it was in 1451 and it lasted till 1526. So we have already seen that the Delhi Sultanate period was from 1206 to 1526 CE, right, which was 320 years, and this Lodi dynasty was the last set of rulers of Delhi Sultanate. So this Ibrahim Lodi was the last king of this Lodi dynasty, and he was also the last king of Delhi Sultanate. So he was the last king for Lodi dynasty, last king of Delhi Sultanate. So he was an intolerant and autocratic ruler who was much disliked by the people. So what is meant by autocratic? It is nothing but a dictator, right? So a dictatorship can also be called as autocracy. So he was like a, so he was ruling like with absolute power. So no one can question him. He was not answering anyone. He was not having an efficient control over the country. And finally, he was not liked by his own people. So the people of his own state did not like him. Okay, so taking advantage of that situation. Okay, so when it was understood that his own people are not liking him, Daulat Khan, who was the governor of Punjab, okay, so what he did, he invited Babur. Okay, so Babur was a Mughal king. Okay, so Delhi Sultanate was not efficient when it came to Lodi dynasty, and by knowing this Daulat Khan, who was the governor of Punjab, he invited Babur. So Babur was the king of Mughal dynasty. Mughal king, okay. So Babur, so he invited Babur and he made him to throw out Ibrahim Lodi. So he invited Babur and told him that you can throw away this Ibrahim Lodi and you can start ruling the country. So Babur was the descendant of TIMUR. So Babur was also the family, came in the family of TIMUR. Okay. So Babur came India. He fought against this Ibrahim Lodi. He defeated him in the first battle of Panipat. Okay, so Panipat was the place where the battle was held. So in that first battle of Panipat, Babur won the battle. He killed Ibrahim Lodi, and in 1526, Mughals rule started in India. So that is how Mughals have entered India after Ibrahim Lodi. Alright. So now we will see about the expansion of the empire under Delhi Sultanate. So how these people expanded their empire, we will first see. So at the beginning, the control by Delhi Sultan was restricted to the, so in the beginning stage, as we have already seen in the map, right. So beginning stage, they were ruling only Delhi and the places around Delhi. So later it was expanded to many places. So first it was only around Delhi and few more cities and towns scattered in North India. So very small towns and very small cities were also ruled in the beginning stage. Later what happened? They had little actual control over these areas. There were many small kings who were ruling. So these people were having very small, very limited control only over these places. So later what happened? They had control over North India and indirect control over the parts of Deccan. So they were having direct control over North India because they were located in that place. And over the places of Deccan, Deccan was almost there in South India. So the direct control was not there. There was only the indirect control, right? So here you can see the control how it was, right. So here, which was in Mamluk dynasty, you can find Qutbuddin Aibak here. So this was the location when Qutbuddin Aibak started the rule, okay, in Mamluk dynasty. In Mamluk dynasty, this was the place where Qutbuddin started his rule. Then came Iltutmish. Yes, we have seen Iltutmish. So these are the places where the kingdom expanded. Yes, so these places, Iltutmish. So Iltutmish slowly spreaded the kingdom, and this was the place ruled by Qutbuddin Aibak. Right? So that was all about Mamluk dynasty. Then what happened? The kingdom expanded more when it came to Khalji dynasty and Tughlaq dynasty. So here you can see, yes, so this was the place ruled by Balban. You remember Balban, whom we have seen in our previous sessions? Yes. So Balban ruled this place. Then what happened? Alauddin Khilji came. So when Alauddin Khilji came, so this was the empire of Alauddin Khilji. Right? So what about these areas? So all these places, the entire place was under the control of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Yes, so when Muhammad bin Tughlaq came to rule, he started controlling almost the entire country. Yes, so it is very clear that he was an efficient ruler unless his hasty decision. So he made some decisions which turned out to be a big flop. So because of that only he lost the kingdom, right. So it was completely under the control of Tughlaq's dynasty. And finally, the later Tughlaqs and the Sayyid dynasty, Sayyid and Lodi, okay. So this was the place, right. So this had become the place for later Tughlaqs and Sayyid dynasty. So only this place was there, and finally the Delhi Sultanate came to an end when it was, so here. So this place was the final empire of Delhi Sultanate. So when it was in Lodi dynasty's control, only this was the place left. So like this, they started from a very small place which was started ruling by Qutbuddin Aibak. So from there, who was Qutbuddin Aibak? He was the general in the army of Muhammad Ghori. Yes. So from there, they expanded till this, and again they have lost up to this. Okay, so this was the expansion of the empire of Delhi Sultanate. So that is how it expanded, and again it lost all its places. So now we will see about the administration of Sultan. So what was the administrative system followed by Sultan? So how did they kept the entire territory or the entire state under their control? So we are just going to see about that. So this was very much influenced in our country, that it was very effective in our country, that the administrative system introduced by sultans lasted for 500 years. That is, till the British came to our country, the administrative introduced by them was followed in our country. So some of the important features about this administrative system are: first, Sultan. So Sultan was the head, we all know about that. So he was the most powerful person in the empire, and they were helped in their duties by a group of nobles, soldiers and officers. So he was the head of the group and he had a group of people to help him on his duties. So they were nobles, soldiers and officers. So next, over time, the sultans came to be seen as, so over a period of time, these sultans had an absolute control such that they were seen as the representatives of God. Okay, they were seen as God's representatives on the earth, and some of them expected their courtiers. Courtiers are nothing but the people who were in the court. Okay, courtiers are the people or ministers in the court. People or ministers in the king's court. Okay, so these sultans expected their courtiers to prostrate before them. Prostrate before them is nothing but falling on the ground by stretching their body. Right? So these courtiers were expected by the sultan that they should fall on his feet. Okay, so fully by stretching their body, they were expected to fall on sultan's feet. Okay, and they were even expected to kiss their feet. Kissing their feet, that is the feet of sultan, they had to kiss. So like this, they were keeping the kingdom under their absolute control. So then came these nobles, so who were just below the level of sultan. Okay, so these were from Turkic and Afghan descent. So they were from Turkish family or from an Afghan family, and they held an important position in the government. So they held, they were in very important positions in the government. So they headed departments like finance, army and the religious matters. So all these departments are the important departments in a ministry, in a government, right? So they headed all these departments. So these nobles were in charge of these departments, and these nobles were very powerful. Okay, they had absolute powers next to sultan, and they were often plotting against sultans. So plotting, what does it mean by plotted? Plotting is doing unlawful activity. Doing unlawful activity secretly. Okay, so without anyone's knowledge, they did many unlawful activities. Okay, so they were against sultan at many places because they were not given the full powers as sultans had. So when they wanted to get that power, they were against the sultan and they were doing many unlawful activities against the sultan. Okay, and stronger sultans like Alauddin Khalji and Muhammad bin Tughlaq took steps to control their power. So only few of the sultans were able to take at least the steps to control these nobles, not everyone. Okay, so they were very often they were against sultans. Though they had power, they were against sultans. The wazir or prime minister managed the finances of the empire and oversaw all other departments. So the finance, main matter of the empire, finance was taken care by the prime minister. The prime minister is also called as wazir. Okay, and the sultans raised many of their slaves to high positions, much to the annoyance of their nobles. So what these sultans did, they even don't like these nobles. Nobles, as they didn't like sultans, sultans also didn't like nobles. So what they did, they brought up the slaves. Sultans had many slaves under them. So they brought up these slaves up to the level that they brought them to the higher positions. Okay, they brought them to the higher positions so that they would easily annoy the nobles. They would just easily irritate the nobles. Was that clear? Then came the ulema. Okay? So, the ulema or the Muslim scholars played an important role in the administration of empire. So, these people are the scholars in the empire. There were constant conflict between sultans and ulemas, and the sultan tried to curb their power. So, there was always a conflict going on between these sultans and ulemas. So, because of that, sultan always tried to curb the power. Curb means taking off. That is, they wanted to take back all the powers given to these ulemas. Okay? So, that was the main idea of main thing about ulema and sultans. Then came Iqta system, right. So, this Iqta system was introduced by Delhi sultans for land administration. So, this was one of the important system introduced by sultans for administrating the lands. So, the empire was divided into tracts of lands called Iqtas. So, the entire empire was divided into small divisions which are called as Iqtas. So, Iqtas is nothing but the division of land. Okay. So, which were given to the nobles and military officials. So, each Iqta was divided, the entire land was divided into small Iqtas, and each noble or a military officer was appointed as in charge for a particular place. Okay. So, the owners of Iqtas called Iqtidars, okay, they are called as Iqtidars, were allowed to collect taxes from their lands. So, all the owners of these Iqtas, they were allowed to collect the tax. Okay. So, they can collect tax from the land. Whoever were using the land, they have to pay tax to their owners. So, that was the situation. And then the part of this money, so the part of the money which was collected as tax was used to maintain the army. So, what was that army all about? That was the army which was used by Sultan whenever he wants to go for a battle. Okay. So, that was a special army. Okay. So, to maintain that army, he used a part of this tax amount. And in the beginning, Iqtas were not hereditary. So, in the beginning stage, that was not hereditary, but later during the rule of Tughlaqs, the later Tughlaqs, after Muhammad bin Tughlaq, okay, so it became hereditary. And then, having grown powerful under weaker rulers, the Iqtidars started acting as independent chieftains. So, as we have seen, after Muhammad bin Tughlaq, there was no proper rule, right, in the Tughlaq dynasty as well as in Delhi Sultanate. Overall, in Delhi Sultanate, there was no proper rule after Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So, because of that, what happened? The Iqtidars, who were the owners of land, they started to act like an independent chieftain. So, they started acting like they were the independent owners of the land, right. And finally, coming to the causes for downfall. So, we have seen how the administration has been there, how the expansion of the Sultanate was there. So, now why did the Sultanate started losing its power? We are going to see that. So, the main causes for the downfall were there were no fixed laws of succession leading to long periods of chaos. So, fixed law, that is, after this king, this person has to rule, this person has to rule. So, there was no such fixed rule for that. So, because of that, it created many long periods of chaos. Chaos means confusion. So, without that many period, there were no proper ruler itself. So, because of that, that created lots of confusion. Then, many of the sultans could not gain confidence of the people because of their autocratic nature of the rule and their policies of religious intolerance. So, because of their dictatorship nature, okay, they were acting like dictators. So, because of that, many people were not happy with their king. Yes, they were not happy with their king and they did not like the king ruling them. So, because of that, as people itself were opposing them, they lost all their support. impractical projects launched by Muhammad bin Tughlaq caused the people a great deal of hardship and drained the treasury. So, as we have seen the three major mistakes done by Muhammad bin Tughlaq, yes. So, because of that people were going through tough times, and due to all these not worked out plans, okay. So, the money he spent on this drained the treasury. So, there were no amount left, okay. The amount started going down. So, the nobles were constantly conspiring and plotting, which left them with little time to discharge their duties. So, these nobles are the people whom we have seen, they were next to the level of sultans, right. So, they were always conspiring and plotting. So, both have the similar meaning. Conspiring and plotting means the act which they do which is unlawful, okay. So, they did many harmful or unlawful acts secretly, okay. So, they spent most of their time in this and they did not do their work properly. Then while the empire had expanded vastly, the means of communication remained poor. So, in Tughlaq dynasty, the empire spread along the India. It was throughout the country, but the communication was not proper. So, because of that, whatever is happening in the other end was not clear to the ruler, right. So, it was difficult for them to monitor the regions. So, that is how, and the later sultans, the organization of the army came to be neglected. So, the later sultans, that is after Muhammad bin Tughlaq, okay. So, the kings who ruled, they were so much negligible about the army. So, they were not much interested in taking care of the army, and invasions by the Mongols weakened the sultanate and hastened its collapse. So, Mongols, when they repeatedly attack, the kingdom started losing its power, and finally when Babur came inside, Mughal empire started and these people completely lost their power. So, here is your assignment. How did Khizr Khan became the Sultan of Delhi? Who were the Iqtidars? Mention any two main causes for the downfall of Delhi Sultanate. So, with this, Delhi Sultanate also has come to an end and our lesson is also over, children. See you soon in the next lesson. Thank you. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.